Hey guys, Liquid Sun here. Today, I know normally I go into four player chess theory, and I figured I might as well have the analysis board up because it's what I use for theory. To kind of follow up with my very silly recent upload, I just wanted to share something with everybody. Um, because I think, we play chess. Chess is, they call a zero sum game in psychology, meaning that there is a winner and there is a loser. And, I think it's important to ask why humans are so drawn to things like chess. I say this as somebody that studies psychology. Right? The why questions to me are really interesting. And I think one of the things to consider is that theoretically, we still have a lot of these really kind of primitive motives, right? We still want to be respected. We still want social status. And I think in chess, what you have is you have this rating system that more or less kind of defines your social status, right? So you're going to have a lot of people that care a lot about winning, but not necessarily for the love of the game. I think that a lot of people care a lot about winning because they want that social status. They want to be respected by their peers. And it's understandable because this social status, which I refer to, um, it was a huge part of what allowed us to survive, or allowed our genes to survive in the past. Right. So it's this very it's this thing we still have theoretically. And I notice it a lot. People can get very upset or care a lot about losing. It is in the end just a game, but people treat it as if it's more than just a game, right? The way I see it, where it's at, is in real life. It's not in the game. The game is imaginary. And what really matters, in my eyes, is like our connection with the world, what we give to society. You know, to me, I view that as a much subtler and a kind of deeper thing. And I view chess as like a window to that. This wonderful window where we can learn more about other people and we can share things with people, right? Chess is, we get to share ideas, we get to be on a team, we get to explore the depths of our minds, right? But it's not the extent to which people are kind of trapped in defining themselves, defining their social status by, like, say, their rating or what other people think about them. They're not going to really. I think it's going to be very difficult to see chess in that way. That it's not about just winning or losing. And so I just wanted to take a time to just quickly talk about that as somebody that does study psychology and somebody that has read a lot about evolutionary theory, about social psychology. Um, because I think that contrary to what we read or what a lot of people believe, rather, there is more to our decisions than just merely what we want and what we don't want. What I guess I'm trying to say is that I believe it is possible to not necessarily be guided by just merely what we want and what we don't want. Because to the extent that we do that, if you think about it, we're really no different from an automaton, right? Like sometimes people view humans as these machines that just do what's in their own self interest. What I'm saying is, I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think that is the case for more primitive motives. For example, the social status I was just referring to. I think that part of our decision making system is definitely just motivated by what we want and what we don't want, right? But we recently have developed these prefrontal cortices, or rather, the prefrontal cortices we now have are much more encephalized, meaning they're bigger, they're grown. And that has given us some very uniquely human capacities, right? Like animals generally just kind of do what comes naturally to them without thinking much about the consequence. What I'm saying is that I believe humans can do more than that. Humans don't, it's not like a human to just run immediately after what it wants, run away from what it doesn't want. I think humans are much deeper than that. Like, for example, if you like take any pet, right? If you kick kick a cat or a dog aside, the cat or the dog is going to come back, not thinking much of what just happened. But for example, if you deeply insult a human being, you'll find it's going to be very difficult to appease that human being. Right? We may be animals in a sense, but we're definitely not beasts psychologically. Humans have they have ideals. They have, I believe, a certain level of culture about them. I think that we are capable of much more than just what we want and what we don't want. So, for example, going back to the motives for social status I was referring to, I think that in contrast, these motives are really about what we want and what we don't want. Thing is that we have the central executive network, which allows us to do things we don't want to do, and we have the reward-based decision-making system, which is based on what we want, what we don't want. And what's really interesting is that these two decision-making systems are almost like antithetical to each other. If you want, you could also refer to the default mode network, which is also part of the prefrontal cortex. So the reward-based system is more about the amygdala and the orbital frontal cortex. Um, but anyway, um, my point is that you can, what I was referring to about uh, social status actually relates directly to what I'm referring to now about human beings and the capacity to do more than what they want and what they don't want. Right? It's kind of interesting if you think about it, because a lot of people think that the whole purpose of life, or at least from my experience, many people believe or have told me that they believe that the whole purpose of life is to just seek comfort, seek what you want, seek social status, right? Like that's the end of life. There's nothing more to it than that. What I'm saying is that people that have been idealistic in the past have said, no, there's more to it than that. And people have said, no, no, science says otherwise. What I'm saying is actually science does support that. Most, well, specifically, very much more recent neurological studies, much more recent genetic studies, all that, much more recent neuroscience suggests that, quite ironically, we become weaker when all we follow is what we want and what we don't want. So the deeper question becomes, well, if it is the case that we can function from more than just what we want and what we don't want, right? Then what is it possibly that we could function from? And I think this question is definitely not an easy question to answer. I'm definitely not here on this video to try to answer that question. I don't really have a good answer to give. What I can say is I think that we play this chess game. I've seen a lot of people that play this game. I have a lot of people I consider friends in this game. I just want to remind all of you that, I think it's important to remember not to get caught up in the trap of kind of, whether it's just in the chess game or in your life, defining yourself entirely by social status and making that the end all be all. Because you also have like ideals, right? There are other things that you have besides just the chess game, besides just your rating. And I think a lot of times people that are really only interested in that kind of almost don't, they view it as like their source of power. Like, oh, I care so much about winning, right? What I'm saying is, ironically, I think you're actually less powerful when that's all you care about. But that's actually not the point. The point isn't about power. The point is, I hope those of you who are watching consider that maybe there's more to all of this. Maybe there's more to life than just immediate comforts. I know that many people are going to still argue with me on this point, and that's fine. I'm just sharing my opinion right now, scientifically informed opinion based on more recent studies, and of course, not only science, but also my own use of deductive reasoning, logic, right? But I do believe that the evidence does fairly strongly suggest what it is I'm sharing with you. Disclaimer, I probably would have shared these ideas with you even before these studies came up. I just wouldn't have been able to really back them up. But, this is what the science is suggesting. I think, for example, the true strength in chess comes not from needing to win. Like, in fact, the strongest players that I've faced, like, yeah, maybe they care about winning, but I think also at some level, they're okay with losing. And this question, like, what does it mean to be okay with losing? Like, what is the source of that motivation? Like, where does that come from? Right. And you can ask deeper questions, like about a person's values, all these things. You can really start asking yourself, what is most important to you? What is your life about? If not just about winning or losing. And I think that these are the questions that it's important to ask, because I think a lot of people forget to ask these questions. And I believe that this could eventually become not only a cause of person's reduced mental capacity, and whether or not a person has mental capacity is really besides the point. I think much, much more importantly, the person could live a much less fulfilling life. And people say, well, fulfillment is just entirely defined by what you want and what you don't want, right? I'm saying it's really ironic. I think to get beyond what you want and what you don't want, you have to be okay with not having what you want and what you don't want. And maybe you could see that there's more to life than just what you want and what you don't want. So these are just some ideas I wanted to share because I have noticed that in the 4-player chess community, there's this strong, people care a lot about how they look. People care a lot about whether they appear strong or weak, or whether they win or whether they lose, blah, 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 blah. What I'm sharing with you, take it for what it's worth. And if you disagree with me, hey, that's totally fine. I'm just sharing with you based on what I've read and also a little bit of my life experience, probably, but more importantly, I think the evidence really does suggest this. Please don't forget what is dearest to you, and please don't get caught up in just merely winning and losing. Because even in the field of just winning and losing, if that's all you care about, just everything I've read suggests you will actually not be as strong. You will actually not be all that you can be, even though, in my opinion, that's not what's most important. Here's the ironic thing about it. I think a part of achieving that is part of letting go of it. Like, part of being strong is letting go of needing to be strong. Of course, if you disagree with me, there might be little I can say to convince you of that point. But at any rate, I just really wanted to follow up my very silly previous video with kind of this more serious note. Because, I think that human life is precious and we're only on this world for so long. And that means your lives are precious. And so I would hope that all of you would live very fulfilling and meaningful lives. So I just wanted to share these thoughts with you. Hopefully, they are of some benefit. And I really wish every one of you all the best. Right? This is, to me, chess is a game of not necessarily trying to dominate people, but like meeting people, sharing ideas. It's much more about camaraderie to me than it is about needing to be number one or anything like that. Well, that's my video for today. Hope you took something away, and I will catch you next time. Peace out.